So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 31st episode of TeamLease's webinar series. As many of you know, we've been conducting these webinars every week since the onset of COVID-19. And the subject for today's discussion is creating formal employment and building agility through new workforce models. And to share their thoughts on this, we have with us three eminent speakers, incidentally, who are from three very different industries. We've got someone from consumer care products industries. We've got somebody who's from construction and infra. We've got somebody from IT and telecom background as well. So that's how diverse they are. So first up, we have Mr. Atul Singh, who's a new age global leader with over 30 years of rich national and international experience working with various organizations in Australia, India, and Bangladesh. He's currently working as the VP CSR at Emami Limited, heading the CSR and sustainability initiatives for the entire group. Prior to this, he was working with Piramal Foundation for over a decade, leading the public-private partnerships in collaboration with the Government of India and over a dozen different state governments as well. Mr. Atul has completed his graduation in migration law from Victoria University in Australia and holds an MCom from Calcutta University. It's a pleasure having you on board, sir. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Look forward to contributing.
Next up, we have Mr. PG Suresh Kumar, Chief Personnel Officer of L&T Infrastructure Development Projects Limited, based out of Chennai. He has been with them for nearly 15 years now. Mr. Suresh is someone who has extensive experience in both line and people function. I mean, you wouldn't believe it if I said that he started as a project engineer and is the CPO right now. So over the course of his illustrious career, he has successfully implemented various projects across roads and bridges, real estate, hydel power, water, ports, and power transmission lines. In fact, the core team of the L&T Hyderabad Metro organization has been put together by him. It's been handpicked by him, literally. Mr. Suresh Kumar has a BTech in Metallurgical Engineering from NIT Jamshedpur and an executive diploma from XLR Jamshedpur. Great to have you on the panel, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Hi, looking forward to. Go on. We will be introducing the third panelist, I hope.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Last but definitely not the least, we have Mr. Anand Dhruv, Head of Talent Acquisition at Netmagic Solutions. He has over 20 years.
Talent management.
Yeah. Sorry. Talent management. All right. Fine. We actually call it TA here. That's fine. Yeah. Yes. Talent management at Netmagic Solutions. He has over 20 years of experience, largely in IT and telecom, spanning across various companies such as Bajaj, Reliance Communications, Intelinet, Lakshya, etc. His experiences largely entail manpower planning, onboarding and orientation, performance management system, employee engagement, lifecycle management, talent management, training and development, and so on. Anand holds an MCom in HR management from Mumbai University and also a PGDBA from Symbiosis Institute of Management Studies. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Anand.
Pleasure, Pala. And it's an honor to have Suresh and Atul along with me because, both in terms of experience and in terms of age, they both are senior. And I'm sure even I am looking forward to have a wonderful learning from all of us, all three.
Thank you. Look forward.
Wonderful to hear that. Thank you so very much. So before we get the ball rolling, just to set the context here, as we all know, India has a very large workforce, a very young workforce besides. But the vast majority of our workforce happens to be in the informal sector. It is estimated that around 45 crore people are part of the informal workforce. That's a third of our overall population. Of course, the Government of India is working on gathering information on these people and trying to provide them with universal social security benefits by linking their profiles with their Aadhaar. Having said that, corporates also have a major role to play in addressing this problem. In a sense, it's their responsibility as well. And yes, to their credit, several organizations have been proactively engaging themselves in channelizing this large informal workforce and are putting them on the map. There's no question about it. However, if there is one thing that this ongoing COVID pandemic has taught various corporations around the world, it is the fact that they need agile and flexible workforce models to cope with such situations. So it's a balancing act between the two. Of course, a formal employment need not be a full-time job, as was the perception earlier. You can provide formal employment without compromising on the need for agility and flexibility to handle adverse times such as the one we are in the middle of right now. So here is where our distinguished speakers will share their thoughts, drawing from their rich and varied experience. All right, so we'll get started with Mr. Atul. Sir, so we have seen a number of new workforce models emerging over the past few years, right? Apprentices, short-term contracts, long-term contracts, gig workforce, and so on and so forth. So what are your thoughts on these new models, and how could they shape your industry and create more formal employment opportunities? And of course, you have been involved with various government bodies in trying to channelize the large, vast, in fact, informal workforce of our country into various formal workforce models. So if you could draw from that and give your thoughts on how these different models can shape your industry, that will be very helpful.
Thank you so much, Bala, and it's a pleasure and an honor for me to be a part of this session. First of all, I'd like to talk about this topic from a very business perspective. So we can categorize this into two parts. One is talking about the workforce and then talking about the workplace. Since I'm not from an HR background, I'll be talking about the workplace in terms of how the workplace actually gets designed to have the right workforce. I'll be basically using my experience and my learnings for the past 30 years to talk about some of my suggestions in terms of the various workforce requirements, especially in the CSR fraternity. I've been working in the social sector, development sector, and CSR sector for some time now. And of course, as you know, India is the first country which has mandated CSR and is now a law since 2014. And all organizations who have a certain threshold of income, turnover, and net worth have to spend 2% of the profit on CSR. That means it's a segment, it's an industry, I would like to say. I would also like to draw upon my experience working in some PPP models where we had some specific workforce requirements. And I've also been part of some foreign funding, some bilateral agencies, multilateral agencies in terms of using some foreign funding. Of late, the FCRA rules have been amended and it's becoming slightly difficult for NGOs and such organizations to draw foreign funding from abroad. But however, I've worked with organizations like World Diabetes Foundation, Denmark, and implemented some of the larger diabetes project in the country. So I'd like to talk about the workforce requirements in those projects. Talking about CSR, I think the main workforce model that we've been using in CSR is basically, without naming it, we are actually following the gig workforce model where we have these short-term requirements. As you know, CSR is all about projects. CSR is all about time-based requirements. Each and every CSR, we have a project, we have the project objective, the guidelines, the milestones to be achieved, the goals to be achieved. What I'm saying here is each and every project is time-bound. That means we can't afford to have a so-called full-time formal workforce joining us because of the strict nature of the timelines involved. And this is where we are working with some short-term contractual people to be able to implement some program. We have certain requirements of people who we require on a daily basis, hourly basis, monthly basis, fortnightly basis, so on and so forth. So we have been struggling in a way to kind of try and have, the whole not so formal sector formalized, because, since we are working, in an environment which is flexible, which is agile, we need to have agility built into our business model and look into various, people. For example, let me talk about the requirement of, let's say, doctors. We have certain mobile medical units that we run, and these are outreach programs where we go to the village and we provide the service at the doorstep. For that, we require doctors. Now, doctors, as you know, are people who are working on their own. They are so-called self-employed, and very few doctors will actually agree to work on a salary or on remuneration. And here we require doctors on a daily basis for some projects. So we organize something like a camp. Camp is like a short-term, 3, 4, 5-day camps. Then, of course, we've got clinics, which is more ongoing and regular in nature. So, for example, we've been struggling to work with doctors, for example, in terms of trying to get the whole relationship formalized and structured so that, we can, have a model way forward. It's like, either we have a hammer and we look for a nail, or we have a nail and we design the right hammer for that. Sometimes I feel, that, we've got too many hammers around and we look for the nail. However, it should be the other way around, where we have the nails and the design of the nails and the, texture of the nails, and we can design the hammer accordingly. So here, also from a PPP perspective, where I was actually working with various state governments, and when I was working for Pyramid Foundation, I was actually part of the implementation of various government programs in a PPP mode, working with various state governments, where we were actually the implementing partner of the government for various health projects. And there also we had certain requirements of manpower, some short term, some medium term, some long term. And we were trying to have a right fix of the right combination, the right permutation combination in terms of what we want. And unfortunately, the whole MOU is designed with the government in such a manner that there are certain criteria who we have to meet in order to get the reimbursements from the government. So once again, the workforce requirement out there was very, very technical and sometimes complex in nature, more so from a reimbursement perspective. In a nutshell, in this VUCA world that we are living in, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, and this is a typical example. We've been reading about the VUCA world. Right now, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and we don't know whether we are at the beginning of the pandemic, middle of the pandemic, or the end of the pandemic. I mean, there are vaccines which is being talked. We don't know the time period when will it actually hit us in terms of getting vaccinated. So we still have to live in the VUCA world. And where we are looking at resilience as far as organizations are concerned. We are looking at agility as far as organizations is concerned, and also working from a triple bottom line framework. A lot of organizations have been historically focusing on only the profit as far as the business objective is concerned, which is a very single shareholder approach. And now organizations are talking about incorporating the people aspect, which is a very, very important aspect. People might be salaried people might be contractual workers, people might be vendors, people might be, the various stakeholders in the system from a long-term business sustainability perspective. So what I'm trying to say here from a business perspective, the requirements are varied, the requirements are flexible, the workforce models are available, it has to be structured, it has to be formalized. I was working in Australia for a couple of years, and there we have the so-called system of students not allowed to work more than 20 hours a week. I'm not too sure what's the current legislation right now. So we had this lot of students working cash in hand, a lot of doctors in India are working cash in hand, a lot of the labor workforce are working cash in hand. And how about structuring it? How about formalizing it? How about organizing it so that we put a structure around the whole economy? The unemployment figures of the country currently talks about the people in the formal sector. However, with the number of people now getting added on to the Ola, Uber, Swiggy, and Zomato, they're all getting employed. So we should be possibly looking at more of livelihood figures, not in employment figures. Livelihood figures basically includes people who are earning, who have an income, and who have some kind of earning bread for the family. So from that perspective, the scenario is changing. We as business leaders, we are trying to kind of incorporate everything into our business plan and make it more holistic, make it more inclusive. I can carry on. I can, talk for the next half an hour. I'll, stop for now and give opportunity for others to speak on this subject.
Of course, sir. But then maybe for another 30 seconds, if you could just touch upon how exactly you think these various workforce models can shape your industry, just specifically consumer goods products, and create more formal employment opportunities.
I think the CSR sector, and I'm talking about the CSR industry. I think this, these various workforce models available can actually be the right fix. If you're talking about a right fix in terms of how can we integrate both forward and backward, I think these workforce models, since the whole industry is project based, since the whole industry is outcome based, since the whole industry is becoming very strategic. Gone are the days when CSR was all about just donating, food or blankets to people. It's becoming very strategic. It is becoming very focused. There are specific skill sets required, and especially in the post-COVID era, a lot of digitization, adoption of technology is now taking place. So I think there's these workforce model, the gig workforce or the gig economy is really going to kick in right now. And we are at the right stage to take off from a gig, perspective, and also, and from a CSR perspective, also from a business, perspective. Also, I think, moving forward, talking about employability, I think we should be talking more about livelihoods, income generation, earnings, and not just about jobs.
Yeah, great, fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Atul. Mr. Suresh, same question. So obviously, we've seen so many new workforce models emerging over the past few years, and now we are at the cusp of a big change. We all believe, right? Be it apprentices, short-term contracts, long-term contracts, gig workforce, so on and so forth. And What are your thoughts on these new models, and how do you think they could shape your industry and create more formal employment opportunities? And I think this is very relevant for you, considering that your business, and correct me if I'm wrong, runs primarily on projects, right? So you need to have a project pipeline, and hence you need to have a talent pipeline as well, which is in sync with that. So what are your thoughts on this, sir?
Yes, once again, a very good morning to all of you, co-panelists. And Bala, thanks for this opportunity. Let me describe the sector in which I am in. Yes, basically from the construction sector, industry, in the infrastructure sector. However, in that itself, there is a separate unit which is into investment business. So while my construction division is there, my unit, which is called L&T Infrastructure Development Projects Limited, is for all of you to understand the likes of Adani, GVK, GMR, where we develop the assets and own it. So when such a thing comes, you see, it's not only EPC contract. My construction unit will do that. They will construct and then exit. Whereas when it comes to owning that asset, if at all we decide, we invest our own money. I'm simplifying it. I don't want to get into any jargon or all those things. So I'm making it in a very lighter note. So you have to bear with me. So what we do is whatever the so-called build, own, operate, and transfer model is that is what we breathe, the PPP model. So predominantly, it is all government projects. So we earlier had the mandate into several subsectors like, real estate, port, airport, railways. Presently, because of a convergence and then focus, as we speak, our mandate is to invest our own money, develop assets, own it, operate it, maintain it. After the concession period is over, hand over that back to the government in roads and bridges and transmission line. That's what my unit is doing presently. So this is just to describe from where I am coming. So in the construction sector, as you very clearly said, slightly over 15 years, and then on a developer's avatar, once again, another 15 plus years. So almost 3 decades I am in this sector. Yes, starting from, it is necessary that I have to describe my role to tell you what I'm going to tell. That as an engineer today, I'm a director of some of the companies of this entity, as well as I head the HR as well as the transmission line business as a business head. To me, it looks all those segments. What are we talking? Apprentice. I was an apprentice once before joining L&T. I remember my salary. Really, very nostalgic thing. I was working for Ennur Foundries, the Ashok Leyland group. So after 3 years, I joined L&T. Then after that, it's a long journey. I don't know anything else other than L&T. Breathe, eat, everything L&T. So belongs to 1987 batch of engineering. So why I am saying this, to me it looks apprentice. We all understand all those Apprentice Act. I'm not going there. Contract basis. Now we also call this at FTC, fixed time contract. Hey man, come here, be with us in my letterhead. Work for us for 3 years, 2 years. Then you go. You are on your own. I'm on my own. Fine. I know all the rules and regulations. Then suddenly, something coming. We are hearing gig. So looking back, I was trying to decode, what is this gig, man? Whether we missed it in our journey. But to me, it looks, no, it was there. Let us take, for example, port. So many things have to go before a ship comes inside. Starting from survey till a tugboat. Can a developer have the entire ecosystem, supply chain? You can. But what about the muscle needed for that? All sorts of muscles, okay, including our own muscles. Really, it is a tremendous stretch. So we didn't know. Earlier, we didn't have a survey. Survey was done by somebody else. They submitted a report. If at all, I call them and they come for a joint meeting and they go home. At the other end of it, tugboats. When the ship comes inside, these tugboats bring them, and then wharfing and all those things takes place, and then they come and, berth inside the jetty or wharf, inside the quay, whatever you call it. So Suddenly we are bringing in a name, gig. Very good, very nice. I think it was there, now it is taking shape. It was there, but in a different form. Now we have gone into everything. Everything is gig. So many things coming as gig. So I'm also recollecting, the plus and minuses of it. Of course, I'm mindful of the time. I will hand it over, but let me touch upon in the initial round itself. One, it depends on the business model. Whether the wherewithal is there, whether you can have everything. Answer presently is clear no. Nobody, let it be the great Ambani, still the entrepreneur who is there near our house, whoever it is, they will all outsource things. So gig is a name which has come. So it depends on the business model. Another one, the socio-economic factor. What is it? Let me say, we have to be sensitive about all those people who are coming into this. They are skilled specialist experts, like, typical surgical strike. They will go do that and come back. It is there in the entire band. From very low, no technology, simple hands and legs are needed for doing certain things. They can be also in the gig, as well as on the other side of the spectrum is a very high techy niche job. Someone, he will come and do his thing and then he will go. It's all there. But what are the points? You see, I'm talking about the Indian context. I certainly respect Atul's points. Very well set in West. It has been accepted. Very good, very nice. But today in our country, what is happening? I remember when I went and, by the time I was ready to get married, I'm talking about a typical normal life conservative. You go and tell that girl side, what is he doing? He's a gig guy. Then, there's, how you are working? Is it safe? Then, you have to do a lot of explanation. So I am mindful of that. All of us, these are all good forums. There should be proper structuring of, contracts, employer-employee relationship. So gig will actually take a solid shape in our ecosystem, and it will be here in a structured way to say. So I'll also talk about the individual who is on the other side of it. The other day I was talking to my sister-in-law who is there in US. She was there with Jcpenney earlier, but what happened to Jcpenney presently? The bankruptcy, insolvency thing has been declared and Jcpenney exchanged hands. However, the logo and the brand name is maintained. That's a different story. But this lady, my sister-in-law, she was asked to go because they said, disband, everything, everybody disband. She was in a regular role earlier. She is now come into the so-called gig. She's doing, because she's doing, let me not go there, certain expertise are there in the software side. She's there in the gig economy. There are some platforms there. She's enrolled. So they call her on and off. Oh, it's all set, it's structured. But on the psyche of it, I asked her, how is it? How things? It's good, but that sense of, the job security is not there. So I'm just stopping it here. One, business should afford. Yes, in infrastructure also it is highly, highly possible. Number two, the socio-economic situation, typically from Indian context. India is a huge economy. So we have to, it's all our responsibility. Atul, Anand, Bala, and also all the people who are watching us, it is our responsibility to put a nice structure into it. Law, terms, regulations, act. And third, individual also should be taken into account from their, security sense. So with this, in the first round, I'm handing it over back to Bala.
Thank you so very much, sir. Again, if I can just touch upon that. So how do you think, so as you said, there is a lot of formalization that needs to happen, even more than what we have today. And while your industry also rides on a lot of these contractual employees, gig, as you said, is more of old wine and new bottle, right? Because it was always there. It's just become a very fanciful term right now because there is a lot of people, maybe drivers who are working with Ola, Uber, delivery partners who are working with companies like Swiggy, Zomato, etc. They've made this name gig very fashionable now. That's about it. But then it's always been there, and a lot of people are recognizing it now. And people like you who've been around for a long time know that it's just the same thing, right? So, all right, great. I'll just move on to you, Anand. So, same question again. We've seen a number of new workforce models over the past few years, apprentices, various types of contracts, gig economy. What are your thoughts on these models and how do you think they can shape your industry? And again, you come from a very vast IT and telecom sector background, right? So even there, it's highly project driven. Of course, maybe not in the same way as construction or infra sector. Yeah, you would obviously need people who are constantly on the development and maintenance side of software as well. You can't just hire people on the basis of projects. However, there is still a significant element or flavor of having projects in place. Yeah. So how do you think having these flexible workforce models is going to shape your industry going forward?
Great. Thank you, Bala. And when you speak last, most of your points gets covered either by the moderator or the other speakers. That's exactly what happened. I just wrote a while ago, when I talk about Suresh ji's and Atul ji's point on gig, I will say old wine in a new bottle. And just, before I could speak, you spoke that, Bala.
I'm so sorry, Anand. I had no idea you had to make a note of that point. But usually the way I manage these webinars is that the same person will not go first, consecutively.
Yeah.
So we'll rotate it. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, this was on a lighter note. So thank you
for the next question.
So thank you, Atul and Suresh, for the wonderful insights. And thank you, TeamLease, Bala, Sony, Naveen, for having us on board and giving us this wonderful opportunity. My sincere apologies for the delay because, as I said, I was traveling, hence I couldn't speak to you guys at length yesterday. So coming back to the topic with the insights, what Atul and Suresh has shared, fantastic, the CSR point and the socio-economic factor. Let's not forget the concept, or let's always from the HR point of view, Bala, what I always consider as is the employee life cycle. When an employee joins your organization, until the time he or she, assuming is going to retire from your organization, where all these, these employment opportunities can fix into or motivate him or her in the organization matters the most. For example, somebody who is at a retiring phase or somebody who has a well-versed experience of 20, 25 plus years and is at a senior age in the organization, gig economy works fantastically well for that particular person. Because by that time, he or she must have already got that experience, or rather I would say the expertise of that subject. He or she becomes the SME. So rather than giving the benefit to only one organization, personally, I feel somebody who has a right knowledge with the good attitude, the gig economy, the consulting part works really, really fine for them. Also, let's understand the economy or the ecosystem point of view. When we had industrial revolution or green revolution, it was all process and machine related stuff. Then logistics and everything, supply chain came into picture. And today is the era of consumers. Today is the era of employees. Those were the days. I can take my example. From the day I am born till the time I saw my father working, he retired from the same organization. That is not the concept today. Today, as an employee, I have multiple options to choose upon. Hence, I say today is the employees market. From a compliance point of view, great, the points which Suresh mentioned about the Apprentice Act, the BOAT Act, which is the Board of Apprentice Training, and the other compliance, it is very, very necessary for you to comply with that. At the same time, that also gives opportunity to the interns or the freshers to get the practical exposure of the concept which they are learning in their academics. Because the biggest challenge I have been into, consulting or teaching with few institutes as a passion for, the industry academy front. The biggest challenge which as a corporate we face today is the practical exposure of the theories which a student learns or understands in the institute, how he or she is going to implement that into practicality. There, these kind of compliance and these kind of trainings plays a very important role. Coming to the questions which you have asked, your summer internship, your stipend 6 months, winter internship 1 year, there are many courses which has a dedicated 1 year of industry experience, which is a part of their course. By doing such things, the workforce which is coming into the the industry is well trained and well versed with the industry concepts. Coming back to the gig economy, as I mentioned, it's old wine in a new bottle, rightly mentioned by Suresh. It was there, it is here, and it is gonna be there for a long, long time. What will change is just the packaging of that gig economy. Today, gig economy is more like a suit boot kind of concept. It is more polished, it is more professional. That's the reason we have a HR head, and I'm giving practical examples because I know many HR heads who are working on a gig or on a consulting with 4 organizations. Either it's a task-based or a project-based or a time-bound assignment. They complete that task and they move on. And what they value is definitely the money. At the same time, the value proposition which they bring on board, what experience they bring on the table, because that particular task or that particular project requires a very, very niche skill. Hence, I said the gig economy and the contractual staffing part works really, really well after one particular point of time, especially from a SME point of view. Coming back to the industry, the IT, the telecom, the manufacturing setups where I have worked in last 15, 20 years, of course, we have contractual staffing. With my current organization, Netmagic, we are close to 1,500 employees and we have close to 1,300 contractual staff. So if you see, nearly almost 80% of my staff is on contractual basis because we are a niche organization. We are an IT infrastructure organization. We construct data centers of our own. So that particular project requires a lot of hands and legs, as rightly mentioned by Sureshji, that, you know, they need that particular skill set, which is required by a person to be present there, but of course, not for a long term. Till the time that project is constructed, we need those staff there. So there, it's very important for we as an employer or we as a contractual employer to take care of them. We definitely take care of the compliance, and as a healthy practice, what we have started is we have started taking them on board if their performance is really up to the mark. Particularly in our HR department, you know, you must be surprised that 2 of the front desk representatives who were on contractual has been taken on board and they're working closely with us in the HR function. So such, concepts which I strongly feel or I believe is charity begins from home. You need to practice such new things so that, you know, you are able to take care of your employees, irrespective of the type of employment you are giving to, whether it's a permanent, contractual gig or whatever it is. Today is the employees market. You need to really, really take care of their, overall development. And that's the reason I touch base on the concept of employee life cycle, because your employment needs varies from the introduction stage till the maturity or the end stage. In fact, today, one more concept, something which is completely out of the discussion which we have. There are pre-employment discussions which we have. We get into a conversation or into a, socializing with the employee even before he or she joins. We meet them over a coffee. We ask the HOD and the concerned, prospective employee to meet for a lunch, dinner. We celebrate Diwali. So we also have a very good practice of sending Diwali gifts to all our offered candidates, those who will be joining us. So even before they join us, that small packet of chocolate, creates a lot of difference. For me, it's the expense of 200 and 250 rupees. But let us understand the type of association, the type of bonding which that develops between you and your, prospective employee. So all these put together, with my experience, when we talk about CSR, we had Mukund Mitra Mandal, Atul. So I was working with Bajaj, Mukund, the team. And there was a special CSR model wherein all the local villages which were around were given the first preference for employment opportunities. And there was this institute known as, there was this NGO sort of internal set of people who were together, which was Mukund Mitra Mandal. Similarly, all my employers whom I have worked with, Laksha, currently with Netmagic, highly believes in the CSR activities, which develops the overall, the society and particularly the neighboring area. So when you focus on such things, new models would come up, and definitely if you put it through, again, this would be either a contractual employment, or it's a gig economy, or it's a project-based or a task-based assignment for which we will be getting associated with, the employment which is available in the market. And last but not the least, very, very important, we need to be very, very flexible. Today, I'll give my example. If Bala is a part of my team and Bala used to come and tell me, today, Anand, I would want to do a work from home, I was very, very reluctant. Rather, I would say, Bala, take a leave, because work from home nahi hota hai. But now, from the last 8 months, the way we all are functioning, that has really, really changed the entire mindset. Tomorrow, if one of my team members or I'm going to go to my manager and say, I want to work from home, I'm sure, we will be able to appreciate and be more empathetic, because things are already working fine from the last 8 months. So with this fixed kind of policies, we have to be very, very flexible, agile, because we don't know, Bala, what is going to happen tomorrow. But touch wood, in the last 8 months, whatever way we were able to work, it has been really, really, wonderful. And on a personal front, we as an organization are able to achieve more than what we were used to achieve in our normal, physical working environment. So your policies need to be flexible. They need to be employee-centric, human-centric, and most important, they need to be empathetic in nature. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so very much, Anand. Yeah, that was very insightful. Uh, Second question, and this time I'd like to start with Mr. Suresh. Which industries do you think and which kind of job roles or profiles will be more aligned towards leveraging these new workforce models? And sir, it is nothing that you have not seen in the last 3 decades that you've been in this industry in any case. So which industries overall you think, and which kind of profiles do you think will take the most advantage out of this?
Okay. First, let me talk about my own, and then I will move to the other sectors or industries. So in the infrastructure where there is actually development, means developing and owning the infrastructure itself, to start with, the entire design can be a gig work. Why? I don't need them beyond a point. I don't need such detailed engineering to be done once the project is up and running. I need only certain specific things. And for that, I actually, in the old, I carry, even today I carry. Today, we carry the design and engineering department along from the beginning. It is a big department. It's a big department. So in infrastructure, whether it is construction or whether it is, owning the entire asset, which is the, roads or bridges or airport, the entire design and engineering can be completely on gig. Then procurement. In the entire life cycle, what will be the peak of my procurement activity? While the construction is getting built, if it is EPC, that's a different ball game. If it is a ownership developer, in fact, I do entire thing on turnkey basis. There itself another gig. For me, what I have to bring? I have to bring the best finance at the best interest rate. So I can actually offload the entire procurement activity itself. Really very funny. You see, finally, what I'll be left with? I think some of my project management guys, and I have to be there. I'm just adding myself to the team. I don't want to be jobless. So while that is on the lighter note, procurement, engineering, yes, I need the operation and maintenance guys. Once the asset is, for example, road projects, we construct the road, we operate and maintain the road. It has to be, as if it was built yesterday. There should not be potholes. There are several categories there. Otherwise, the independent engineer will come and slap a penalty. Then, presently, India, from a conventional way of stopping in the toll and then giving money, now it moved to RFID, fast tag. Soon, our economy is going to be like Atul has experienced there in Australia and Western. Most of us have traveled abroad. The vehicle doesn't stop. It is a gantry braced. So as the vehicle goes at that speed, it just scans and then do it. That will be the next thing for India, because each one will cost something around 3,000 or 4,000 rupees in the present stage. So government is coming step by step, having introduced fast tag for the vehicles. Today, you tell me in how many toll plazas we are actually stopping and paying money. It's all getting scanned. RFID reader is there. It's all become compulsory. So in my ecosystem, all those things, setting up the entire, highway toll management system, HTMS, that can be also, it can be completely given on contract on a quality basis, SOP basis, over period. So what we have to do, one has to come with money, invest it, and do the regular project evaluation and sit there. And then, you have your project finance guys. They do the number churning. They see the health of the project. So I am putting everything into one in the method. I won't call it old because still we are practicing it. So in my industry, so many such departments can be just put into gig. It is question of when. Why? In the Indian economy, we don't like to, just like that, do CSR or, compulsory retirement or VSR that quickly. It's a mindset. Don't get me wrong. I'm not announcing it. I'm only saying it. In the time to come, I think that will be the order of the day. If the bottom line has to be safeguarded, there is no point in carrying so much of overheads. So I think the new business model will be the ask. This will be the ask of the day, right? Bala, I will make an attempt, but I think there are other experts because other industry, I'm actually, I will say a frog in a big lake. I stayed with L&T for, 3 decades. I'm a frog in a big lake. Yes, it gave me so many other opportunities. You talk about thermal power stations or mining. I can talk about those, but everything is put into infrastructure. Now, I'm just making an attempt. Maybe I am wrong. So with so much caution, I'm just telling. Airlines. The entire, pilots can also be on gig. Hey, we have this thing here. Can you come fly this from Bombay to Calcutta? Ensure that Atul goes for his CSR meeting and comes back. Over, yeah. Then the crew, what you need is that you have to put a smile on them. The skill sets they will have. Yes, please come, sit. Nowadays, thanks to COVID, I don't think, I'm yet to travel. From March, I stopped traveling. Atul and all you guys can correct me. Whether we still have that, Namaskaram, please come, sit down, please come. I don't know. But that also can be put into gig. Maintenance. I think standard operating procedure. I think it is question of so many things can be put into gig. Now comes the word of caution. I'm actually jumping the question. I will just state it and leave it there because I think you are going to ask. We are into cultural building as Anand, even Atul has experienced. Reliance means there is one specific culture. Tata's means there is a certificate culture. L&T means there is Bajaj, Mahendra's, everybody. ITC, everybody, every brand. How to have that culture? Is it culture important? I don't know. I think the leaders have to now sit and think, hey guys, if you stick together, there is a possibility, culture guaranteed. But if you are going to break it, you are going to have so many types of culture, subculture. I don't know what we are. So what sort of recipe will come out of it? I am not sure. Let us say Reliance. They are also doing gig, subcontracting, fixed time contract. They're also there. But there's a critical mass which is also still not regular employment. But when it all becomes a combination, what sort of biryani will come out of this? I am not sure at this moment. So if you are a cultural custodian, the so-called HR, cultural gatekeepers, what is that we are going to give and develop as a culture? I am putting the question back to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. It's a very interesting thought. Yes, how do you balance these things out? You're supposed to maintain a certain culture in the organization. But then, as you said, if in your sector, your industry, pretty much every job can be outsourced based on the nature of the industry itself. And there are several other industries as well, as you said, for example, in travel, where bulk of the jobs can be outsourced. And how do you balance culture with gig? Right? That's the pertinent question to ask. Yeah, that's true. I don't think it's a question for which any of us have the answers to be honest. But thanks so much for your thoughts, sir. Anand, over to you. So which industries and job roles do you think will be more aligned towards taking advantage of these new models? And yes, of course, you can talk about the industries that you were exposed to and what you think are the other industries where, these new flexible workforce models can actually benefit the most.
In fact, to answer that question, Bala, I think all of them. From the last 8-9 months, we all are working, and the entire mindset of we as HR professionals or every organization has completely changed. But particularly if we talk about industries, IT, definitely, we have only critical bare minimum resources which are required to be mandated to manage that one particular site or that data center is required to work. Rest, as rightly mentioned by Suresh, all of us are working from home. My accounts team, my procurement team, my marketing team, we as the entire HR team, select few from the admin team are going to the workplace, of course, to take care of the logistics, because there are 8-10 employees were there in the office because they are physically required because of certain compliances. So IT, telecom definitely are the industries which are going to be benefited out of this current model. And when we talk about manufacturing, which we were discussing, Bala, yesterday, particularly, of course, when you have a machine, when there's a production, that can't be work from home. There is no second thought on that. Physically, somebody has to be there to take care of that entire, a piece. But barring that, all the support staff, all the staff which does not require a physical presence in the office can get the benefit of such kind of policies. Particularly when we talk about gig, all type of industries can be benefited by the gig economy part, the consulting part, because as I said, project-based, task-based assignments, when you talk about manufacturing as a industry, when you have certain assignment or certain particular project or task which needs to be taken care, for example, let's say production increase or demification or a certification or a Six Sigma model or any quality related aspect, expertise from the outside can be hired and come on board and take care of that entire piece of work for a month or 6 months or a year based on the process. Because I still remember, I'm sure Suresh and Atul would be able to relate to it. As a manufacturing organization, Deming was one of the certifications which we wanted to get into. It was one of the quality certifications, and none of us had that expertise. In spite of spending good years in the industry, having double post graduation, unfortunately, we were not able to take care of that aspect because there are certain niche skills which are there. Even in our particular IT industry, there are certain skills which are so niche that, my hiring manager goes crazy. He spends, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months just to shortlist the candidate because these skills are very, very niche. So when you talk about such concept, these niche skill resources, project-based assignments, IT, telecom industries are definitely going to get the best, benefits of these. At the same time, other industries can take the benefit, but as rightly mentioned by Suresh, you have to be very, very cautious because, when there is a project hike or when there is a peak of your project deliveries, that outsourcing model may not work out. So outsourcing everything is definitely not a good choice. But yes, if you're able to manage that, if you will be able to handle that smoothly, today outsourcing, is the best option which has happened. Even in our personal lives, if you go back and see, there are so many things which we have outsourced. Rather than driving a car, we would prefer booking a Ola or Uber. That's outsourcing. Or doing a marriage arrangement or doing any celebrations on our home by ourselves. Today, we prefer giving it to an agency and getting it outsourced. So if you see, outsourcing is everywhere. The gig economy and contractual staffing is everywhere. It's up to you. You have to make that cautious decision that whether you will be able to manage that, because once you outsource, there are little challenges which also comes on board from a time and from a delivery point of view. Hence, as an organization, as a HR professional, we always make that wise business decision of having a mix, a blend of both. Outsourcing at the same time, keeping some control on ourselves so that we are able to mix, we are able to get the blended benefit of such concepts. But definitely with my kind of industry currently with telecom IT, I'm sure that's the best time because as rightly mentioned earlier during my conversation that we were able to achieve what we were used to achieve in our physical mode when we used to work from office and today when we are working from home. Because that gave us a lot of advantage. There are so many benefits which we are getting. My admin costs, my logistics, my transportation, my infrastructure, my light bill, all these costs are being reduced and I'm getting the benefit of those things. So again, it's up to you. You need to take a wise decision, but yes, all the industries can take the benefit of the current model and the gig economy and outsourcing model. It's your kind of, setup or your kind of SOP. You need to take a cautious decision, which one you need to do and which one you need to keep it to yourself.
Sure. And I think, honestly, IT naturally lends itself to this model of work from home and flexibility, right? Because it's it's the perfect foil, I would say, for these kind of special workforce models to take over. Yeah, absolutely. Great.
I know Bala somebody, whom I used to speak to 4 years ago. He's working from home since 4 years. And I was like, how is this possible? I have never experienced this. As humans, till the time you don't experience, you won't be able to relate to it.
Correct.
But now I'm able to relate to it that yes, it's possible. It is not required that you have to be physically present. If you're able to do your task well with the stipulated time in the controlled environment, work from home or, outsourcing definitely works well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Mr. Atul, same question. So in your opinion, which industries and job profiles do you think will be more aligned towards leveraging these new workforce models, new emerging workforce models?
Yeah, I have a slightly different perspective here. Talking about work from home, and I think I see a lot of people talking about work from home. Our experience working in the social sector is that work from home obviously has not been much of a success because primarily of the nature of the work. The nature of the work is to
Correct.
work with the community, work for the community in partnership with the community. And we've tried e-learning platforms, we've tried online learning, we've tried telemedicine, teleconsultation. Somehow there's a huge digital divide in the country. And to be able to kind of have a model where we are able to deliver the same level of the quality of services as before is a challenge. Okay. Coming to the industry, which is more relevant and which can probably take the most advantage. Well, I've been working primarily in two industries as a part of CSR, as a part of the social sector. One is the healthcare industry, which includes public health. Two is the education and skill development or vocational education. Now, with the advent of the new national education policy, which is a very, very proactive document, and it really talks about a lot of aspects in terms of how education will shape in the future and how teachers can play a bigger role, instead of just information providers to knowledge accumulators. I think when we talk about school or teachers, we only talk about schools. We only think about schools. When we talk about education, we think about educational institutes. When we talk about healthcare, we think about hospitals. Now, as far as hospitals are concerned, hospital is a place where we have, curative care. Now, the world or the government is talking about promotive care and preventive care, which is where, a doctor can play a more active role in terms of ensuring people don't fall sick. And we have hospital which treats sick people. So from that perspective, in terms of how can we horizontally spread the services of a doctor, for example, using gig, how we can horizontally spread the services of a teacher. Sorry, there's construction work happening just beside the building, and these are, some challenges of working at project locations. How, we can horizontally spread the services of a teacher. Teachers usually are working right now on a salary mode in a school. Is there a model through online, through digitization, through use of technology where we can have the best of teachers provide, more of, services in more than one schools? Here we are talking about the experts being used not just for one organization, but in a gig economy being used by various other organizations. Same apply for teachers, same apply for trainers in the vocational education segment, same apply for doctors. Talking about doctors, and I've been working very closely with doctors, and also one of the biggest challenges for me in implementing healthcare projects in government, in association with the government, is actually implementation of projects which is doctor based, which is doctor dependent. And here, for example, India is a country having 138 crore population. As per the World Health Organization, we need a doctor-patient ratio of 1:1,000, which means that India needs approximately 13-14 lakh doctors. What's the number of doctors available in the country? Just about 7 to 8 lakhs. So we have a 50% shortfall of doctors. So that means there is a requirement of a horizontal spread of the doctor services beyond the geography. So as using technology, geography has become history. We have tried to use telemedicine. We've tried to use teleconsultation to bring a doctor's services at the remote level, at the grassroots level, at the bottom of the pyramid, using gig, using technology, using various models, of formalization of the agreement. There is a huge scope of penetration into, the rural market and kind of trying to offer value-added services using the gig model. And here I'm talking about penetration. Here I'm talking about value addition. Here I'm talking about quality of services that can be rendered at the grassroots level. Talking about trainers, we already have trainers in our vocational education segment. Some of them they work 2 hours a week, some of them they work 4 hours a week, some of them they work thrice a week. So we have classes. Let's say our here and beauty kind of a trainer, she works 2 hours a day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. She's already a good gig worker, but the whole agreement is not finalized or formalized to an extent that we can use this as a model for a sustainability perspective in the future. And talking about demographic dividend as far as India is concerned, and talking about the 5 pillars of Atmanirbhar Bharat, which talks about the economy, the infrastructure, the IT, the systems and the processes, the demography and creating demand. let me talk about demographic dividend as far as India is concerned, how we can kind of use gig, how we can use the outsourcing model to be able to reap the benefits of demographic dividends, how we can bring more women in the workforce, how we can have more of people who are actually contributing to be able to contribute more, not just from a job perspective, but from a livelihood perspective. These are some of my thoughts, and also from the perspective of going around the world and having a look at various models. Yes, I have got the advantage of looking at various models in various countries. I've worked in India, in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, in Australia, and I was part of a gig economy myself when I was in Australia, where I was in a bank of the so-called call center operators, and as and when required, the workforce manager used to give me a call, say, hey Atul, we need you to work those 4 hours extra on a weekend. You'll get double the pay because you're working on a weekend. And it's not bad. And the whole, someone spoke about culture. I think there's a huge cultural shift in terms of how we take the gig workers in India, and how, the gig workers, they choose gig themselves because of the flexibility. I've got a friend of mine in Australia who actually works 3-4 months. January is the time when we have the Australian Open, and he's a crowd controller there. And he works as a crowd controller full time, kind of at the Australian Open, and then earns enough money to be able to go for a world tour for the next 3-4 months time. And this is what they choose as a flexibility in terms of their own. They don't want to be, limited through a fixed job, reporting on time, having those 25 days of leave, and kind of get, kind of bound in the whole system. So here we're talking about industry. Here we're talking about specifically the healthcare industry, the healthcare workers, the pharmacists, the lab technicians, who are actually working already in a gig setup. Like Bala very rightly said, it has to be formalized, it has to be structured, it has to be put into a framework, it has to be put into a proper model, which has a legislation, and which has to kind of, look, which has to kind of, look, brought into the context of a framework, and a kind of, the whole thing has to be made more formalized to be able to have bigger impact and social impact also in the future.
All right, thank you, Mr. Atul. Now, I had more questions to ask of the panelists at my own end, but then interestingly, we've got a lot of questions from the audience as well. And since we are running short of time, I'd like to jump to that. So the first question we've got is that a large number of jobs currently in the gig or temporary economy require no special skills or knowledge. The examples that I gave earlier, right? It could be driver partners, it could be delivery partners, right? Who are working with the likes of maybe Ola, Uber, or with Zomato, Swiggy, etc. Yeah. Do you think there will be more skilled and specialized roles that will move into these models in the future? So Anand, I would like you to take up that question.
Yes, of course, yes. There's no second thought on that. I'll give my example, Bala. Particularly, I have my teams who are logged in as well. They would agree to it. I strongly believe, and I preach on that particular part. When we talk about hiring, I personally feel the ask model, the attitude skills, ASK, attitude skills and knowledge model. The employee or the particular candidate, or the employee with the right attitude can be trained upon, and particularly with the current setup, all with a limited time and specialized training, that particular skill can be developed. So with the right attitude, if there is a training imparted and you are able to develop your skill, there are a lot of multiple employment opportunities which will be created for skilled and semi-skilled segment. Not only about the semi-skills, but even unskilled sectors, with little bit of training that can be converted into semi-skilled, and they can be groomed up to skilled level. So with all three kind of contractual setup of skilled, unskilled, and semi-skilled, with little polished training, they can definitely get up the ladder, and there are multiple employment opportunities. And that's the reason today, as rightly mentioned by Atul, Suresh, and also me during our conversations, lot of contractual work and lot of project-based work and lot of vocational work will be available for such segment employees. So it's very important to get the right skill of training. And then with the current, thanks to technology, thanks to availability, reach, that today there are so many training opportunities, so many vocational courses available for them to upgrade themselves. So yes, there is a huge scope for such employment opportunities. And I strongly feel that with our kind of population, with our kind of mixed, resources available in the in the economy, definitely such opportunities should be taken up by the youth, and they can definitely convert them into entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs down the line.
Great. Thanks so much, Anand. Second question, and I think Mr. Suresh, it will be great if you can take this up. Traditionally, Indians have been brought up with the notion of getting a stable job or a stable career, the point that you were alluding to earlier as well. Would you think skilled and specialized labor would be comfortable in a gig setup in the future?
Okay. My close friend, he wrote IIT JEE and went to IIT Chennai, IIT Madras, of course. Then he went to IIM Ahmedabad. First of all, why he went to IIT Madras? That is not his choice. I'm talking about 1982, 80. Your parents will make the choice. So poor fellow pushed and got, and then he went to IIT Madras. I'm answering your question. But please bear with me, be with me in this story. Then again, somehow, everybody wrote CAT, so he also wrote CAT. A good guy, a brilliant guy. So he made it into IIM Ahmedabad. Look at this combination, IIM Madras, then IIM Ahmedabad. By the time he has seen the world, the conversational intelligence, communication intelligence, how to take on his parents. So he went back and said, hey, I fulfilled. So I have become an engineer. Otherwise, it's a pop. If you are not an engineer, it's a pop on this side. So he said, everything okay, everything fine. Now I am pursuing my own interest. He ended up as a chef. That also he has done it. He got that formal certification. He ended up there in a 5-star hotel, cooked fantastically here. Very nice. Really, we used to enjoy. He was here in Chennai. And fantastic, superb hands, nice, tasty things. Only after 8 years, he became a fantastic trainer. So today, he's actually making very decent amount of money, very well settled in Bangalore. So this is what is the answer to them. Once again, you repeat the question.
So traditionally, Indians have been brought up with the notion of getting a stable job and stable career. Would you think skilled and specialized labor would be comfortable in a gig setup? Temporary job. Yeah.
Exactly. So the story is the answer. I mentioned about the tradition. Because people, as I said in the initial opening up remark also, people always ask what job he is in, or whether we can give our girl or not. Ultimately, it boils down to that in India. How safe they are, do some background check, this, that, and all those things. So tradition is this. But talking about skills, talking about knowledge, whether in the gig economy they will come in, it is changing. It is in transition. Like Atul gave that example. Who wants to carry this yoke for a long time, entire life, like a bull, this fellow is pulling the cart. This is how we were all brought in. I'm also from that. In this job, if you are not there, you are not there in the world. Yeah, you are not part of the system. Things are totally changed. Things are totally changed. In fact, let me tell my own example, talking about tradition. My son, he said, at the third year, by the time in the third year of engineering, he got his courage, conviction, and guts to tell, enough is enough. Where you put me is a school. I'm not going there. Enough. I'm not studying. Then he said, I want to see the world. He went outside. Anyway, I was very worried what to do, but we were not showing it to my son. Answering your question, today he found what he is interested. He's there in US, well settled. God bless him. Answer is, they are all finding, it is all individual's choice than an ecosystem and a system choice. Talking about skills and knowledge, as Anand was telling, it is also our responsibility. You have decided in your business model that we will go for this part of the supply chain or the entire system. Gig will be the answer for this. I think as an HR person, maybe if that ask is also there, we also can give that specific skill sets to them and sharpen their delivery. And from there, you can also have the choice. Your bank of talent is available, pool of talent. From that, you can make them, draw them, and then you can tell them, hey, you will work this, these are the conditions, this is the SOP. So it is a win-win. So yes, from tradition, we are moving out. Even a person like me, a frog in a such big lake, then my mind opened, my heart lightened. He's doing well, yeah. My son is doing well. Not that just because he dropped out on his choice, third year engineering, he's pursuing fantastically. I'm not going to that side of the story. And entire CSR activities, in that also, this also can be a CSR, parting such skills to those people, preparing them for the gig, and then make it as a win-win. So we are all moving away from tradition, and this is going to be the order of the day. Even I think rocket launching is becoming a gig, yeah. NASA didn't want to do it, and a smart fellow, he said, hey, I am the first mover. He has come, and Falcon 9.
Elon Musk, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Bala just wanted to add one line here.
Sure.
As rightly mentioned, as a father, he accepted that fact. As a partner, I am ready to accept the fact that tomorrow, if my spouse comes and tells me that, she would want to run the house, she wants to go out and she wants to work, will you be able to manage the chorus? Will you be able to manage the family and be home? I don't mind doing that. If you see, there is a shift. So coming back to the person who has asked the question, there is a visible shift in the current, especially in the Indian kind of setup. People are open. Vocational is no more a vocational part. Vocational is also considered to be a full-time employment opportunity because there is a lot of awareness which is created, unfortunately, which was not the case 10 years, 20 years before.
Absolutely. Now, honestly, I believe that more than a developmental change or an economical change, it's a mindset change that's going to actually make a big difference for us in India. So we are also mired in traditions and cultures and perceptions. It's difficult to break through that.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Absolutely.
With my current company, at a senior most position, one of our supervisor, I would say the next -1 level and -1, the second lead in the organization, moved to US because his spouse got a wonderful opportunity. And then he said, and then we were like, Arey, you are at the end of your career. And he said, no, that I have been working since 25 years. Now it's her time. She has got a fantastic opportunity. So now it's my time to contribute. So, it's always a balance. And I'm really happy that today I can see that shift in many of us.
Thank you. Question to Mr. Atul. Until a few years back, we largely had permanent workforce in organizations. Now with these new models coming into the picture, do you see the percentage of permanent workforce for certain industries, of course not for all, declining to less than majority in the long run, as in contract workforce could be more than 50% eventually for some industries? Do you envisage that happening or no?
I think answering this question, I would like to go back to the word culture. Okay, culture from the perspective of the mindset of the parents, culture from the perspective of the mindset of the organization, which is the business. Let's talk about the parent first. So, for example, I work very closely with parents, and I do a lot of workshop with parents, and I talk to parents about career planning of their children, and most of them still want their children to be the doctors and the chartered accountants and the MBAs and the CAs, so on and so forth. I run a lot of skill development centers, and there we have various kind of skill-oriented, industry-connected kind of courses. Let's take the example of a plumber, or let's take the example of an electrician, or let's take the example of a welder. Now, talking about white collar versus blue collar, which father would like his son to become a plumber? Which father would like his son to become a welder? Talking about welders, and since as a part of CSR, we have collaborative relationship with various other corporates. A good welder in a steel plant gets around 1 lakh, 1.5 lakh salary a month. Okay, so when I speak about culture, some of them are working on contractual basis. A good welder, an industrial welder who work in steel plants, goes from factory to factory and does the welding job, specialized activity, and he's a gig. But from a culture perspective, which father or which parent would like, for example, his daughter to be married to a plumber or a welder? That's the first point. The second point is about culture of the organization. The organization has a culture. Some of the organizations say, okay, fine, till the time we have people on our rolls, they're not our staff. They don't consider them staff. They consider them outsiders. Talking about the whole mentality of organization, I've often heard people talking about employees as, oh my God, I have to take this whole obligation and liability of paying him. So the whole mindset is about, treating employees as liabilities and not exactly as assets. A good employee is actually an asset for the organization. So from a mindset perspective, from a culture perspective, gig has the potentiality to really, have a big mark on the entire economy. However, there are cultural issues, there are mindset issues, which needs to be counted first. So we have the hard part and then we have the soft part. The soft part is the culture, the mindset, the way people look at, a job. So for example, a father who's wanting his daughter to get married, will he want a daughter to get married to a government job holder or to a gig worker? A gig worker might be maybe earning 5x more than a government job. But in this country where we have less of social security payments, we are very fond of the safety net. Job security is a big thing. Government job, is really sought after. People, would not like to send their son to a government school. People would not like their parents to be sent to a government hospital, but they would like to work in a government job setup. So these are some cultural barriers. However, the potentiality is there. The requirement is there from a demographic dividend. Once again, I spoke about, there's a huge scope of bringing a huge amount of workforce into the gig economy in the interest of the productivity and output of the corporate and contribution towards the economic development of the country. However, the main challenge is the mindset, the culture, the people, which is the society, the community, the corporates, and the overall country as a whole. Where it's a huge population, it's not possible for the government to take care of so many people in terms of providing them social security benefits and privileges. However, and that's the reason why people are very fond of saving. I was in Australia, people get weekly payments, they get the money on a Thursday, they blow it out on Friday, Saturday, they come back at zero on Monday. Because they've got, if they don't have a job, the government gives them toll, which is like a, social security saying, hey, we've not been able to provide you a job, take some money, take care of yourself till the time you get a job. With this kind of a country having a huge population and the government is doing, their bit in terms of trying to, have people come into the so-called safety net is very, very challenging, very, very difficult. And, we've got a long way to go as far as ensuring a gig economy really kicks in. However, it is very much possible. And that's the way to go for the future.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so very much, Atul. And I think that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you so much to all the three of you wonderful panelists. I think we've had a very, very interesting session. Thanks a lot for your time. Once again, we truly appreciate it. And the video recording of this webinar will soon be uploaded on YouTube as well for all to see. Thank you so much once again for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure connecting with all of you.